Kenny Rogers,
On a train bound for nowhere.
born on 21st August 1938,
We were both too tired
died
to sleep,
this year
so
on
we
20th
took
March
turns staring
2020.
out the window
Kenny Rogers
in
said,
darkness.
"Don't be afraid to give up the good for the great." Kenneth Ray Rogers was an American singer, songwriter, actor, record producer, and entrepreneur. He was elected to the country's Music Hall of Fame in 2013. Rogers was particularly popular with country audiences, but also charted more than 120 hit singles across various music genres and topped the country and pop album charts for more than 200 individual weeks in the United States alone. He sold over 100 million records worldwide during his lifetime, making him one of the best-selling music artists of all time. His fame and career spanned multiple genres: jazz, folk, pop, rock, and country. He remade his career and was one of the most successful crossover artists of all time. His signature song, 1978's The Gambler, was a crossover hit that won him a Grammy Award in 1980 and was selected in 2018 for preservation in the National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress. He had a net worth of $250 million at the time of his death. Kenny Rogers said, "Don't be afraid to give up the good for the great." Don't be afraid. Yes. You've got things ready-made in your house. But evolving from that to another one section is your strength. Proving that you can maintain what God has given this body as a gold, melting it to the highest temperature and creating varieties of ornaments is yours. That was, again he said, "I got it. The same song I got it. The same song others have got it. Why they are not become popular and I became very popular? Because I had that thinking, don't be afraid to give up the good. I had the good of that song, but make it great." I melted with the people to understand what they wanted. And I started burning inside me. A burning desire. I melted my stone into the highest temperature, and then when it started melting, I could make ornaments according to what the people wanted. Yes, I could flow with them, understanding their taste. That made me great. That's what the greatness of Ashoka, the great Ashoka, was telling. Not much of facilities, but make people strong. Yes, to make people strong, you have to make sure that the people are well disciplined to the core. 100% is 100, not a pint of shit and a cup of vanilla ice cream. To make them strong, you have to work very, very hard in a disciplined manner. Hence, Ashoka the Great and Alexander the Great also did the same thing. And Muhammad Ali said, "I am the greatest." Yes, he should have stood there. But make it the greatest, he has to entertain the people, he has to first melt himself, he has to burn it to the highest temperature, and he did it. When it burned to the highest temperature, people all came to see his fights, varieties of ornaments, varieties of punches, and varieties of kicks. And he said, at the third round, I will knock him down. He did knock him down on the third. He said, knock him down on the fourth round. He did knock them on the fifth round. Just moving to make sure. That was the greatness. If everybody understood, especially the students group, if they understood, then when the teachers given them the good, the notebooks, the textbooks, and then the guide, when you go back and you study 1,000 times, read 1,000 times in conscious state, and it gets imprinted every cell of the brain, and when the question comes, answer flows of its own. In the examination center, answer flows of its own. You get varieties of interpretation of answers. You have to only pick it up. You have to pick up which gold, which ornament goes with that dress code, with that question. That was the greatness of Kenny Rogers. Understood. Yes, he could move the people with that greatness. Yes, he was a doctor, Kenny Rogers, because through hearing his song, many people's sicknesses have been brought down. Many people threw their medicines out. Such was the power of a musician, especially Kenny Rogers, he was a scientist. People could penetrate deeper. Yes, listening to Kenny Rogers is something great. He must have been a meditator. He must have been a Maharishi to understand the people, to entertain the people. Entertain the people means to make sure what the people want. Sometimes the touch of God, touch of a doctor will make all diseases go. People's disease goes. Kenny Rogers said, don't be afraid to give up the good for the great. All the businessmen, that's good. You got a hotel, you got a business center, but thinking of 1,000 years history, how do my company stays after 1,000 years? Where do I take my country in 1,000 years' time? That is the greatness of a businessman. That businessman is called a godly businessman. He understands the pulse of the people. He has taken the people to the extreme, like Steve Jobs, deep down, yes, silently working. Like the ducks on the riverbed. The Japanese were the ducks on the riverbed. Who the ex-American from Jimmy Carter said, but the legs are walking very fast under the water. Such was the greatness. And the greatness shocks the world. Don't be afraid to give up the good for the great. You have got a good house. But open your windows. Yes, allow the relatives. Go meet the relatives. Go outside. Open your heart first to the nature. When you're not in deep, intimate relationship with the nature. I kept on repeating this once. And when you're not in deep, intimate relationship with your nature, Jiddu Krishnamurti said, when you're not in deep, intimate relationship with your nature, then temples and churches and masjids and films and all the things, all the glitters is not that gold. Becomes very important for you. When you become deep, intimate relationship with your nature, with your family, with your nature, first with your nature, you go to the sunlight. When you are in the hot, be the hot, allow the body to heat it up. Sweat, you will enjoy every part of sweat. When you sweat it out, you started understanding that you started becoming from good to great. From that stone, you start melting the stone to make it a beautiful, beautiful ornament. The gold started melting. You will enjoy that heat. Yes, I have enjoyed it. It's so beautiful. Sit in the sunlight. Even Dean Ornish, the cardiologist, the chief physician of the American president, Bill Clinton and others in the White House who did the reversal of heart disease said, as much as possible, sit outside in the sunlight and sweat it out. And there is no heart attack. Yes, for heart patients, he used to tell, not only heart attack, for BP, sugar, everything. Don't be afraid to give. Once you have the deep, intimate relationship with that nature, then your deep, intimate relationship with your family, with the joint, your family. You forgot to love, you forgot to kiss, you forgot to hug. So when you are in deep, intimate relationship with your nature, you start hugging the tree. It becomes a tree therapy. You started talking to the plants. Then it becomes a plant therapy. Then you start playing and talking to your pet animals. Once you know that, you can sit and talk with your wife, with your husband, with the children, then with your parents, then to your relatives, then to your joint family, then your family tree is strong. That is the greatness of yours. After you get a beautiful house, a washing machine, a refrigerator, and a TV. You are thinking the TV is your grandfather. TV will tell you all the whole stories. Grandfather only can tell you stories. These stories are to entertain you, to make you a nobody, made you a slave. Let the filmmakers make something which is good for the country. Rainwater harvesting, teaching the people about rainwater harvesting. Solar wind. Not a single film I am seeing the script writers or the filmmakers are talking about rainwater harvesting. The day they stop making, the country has gone to dogs. Then our Prime Minister or anybody fights very hard to strengthen the country. No, you cannot say, these are the gangsters who are destroying the country. Stop it, stop watching them. If a filmmaker and famous personality doesn't talk about rainwater harvesting, wind energy, and rainwater harvesting, forget, they are the enemies of us. Enemies of us. If you are a very good father and if you are a very good mother and a grandfather and a good teacher and a good guru, talk about rainwater harvesting. When you are in deep, intimate relation with nature, then you are not afraid to give up the good for the great. That was what Kenny Rogers said, who was a doctor who has killed people with his music and killed the diseases of people and then made them live, made them beautiful. Yes, Kenny. You're loved by so many. Kenny Rogers said, don't be afraid to give up the good for the great. This is my 140th short discourse.
And he began to speak. He said, son,